In the 57th year before our era, the Roman historian Tacitus wrote a strange line that church censors tried to erase from manuscripts for centuries. He spoke of the shepherd's code, a mystery said to alter the fate of empires. Most dismissed it as superstition. But what if it was true? Today, we uncover a secret hidden on the pages of humanity's oldest book, the story you know as David versus Goliath. But what you don't know may change not only how you see the past, but the future of our civilization. Because this story is not just an ancient legend. It is an encrypted matrix, a prophetic algorithm repeated across millennia. And now, in the 21st century, this code awakens again. Are you ready to learn why the world's most powerful empires fear one simple shepherd with 5 stones? And why that fear may soon become reality in our own century? The Valley of Elah, 30th century before our era. 2 armies face each other, but this is no ordinary battle. It is a clash of 2 worldviews, 2 types of civilizations. On one side, the Philistines, descendants of the sea peoples, with their iron chariots and bronze armor. They were the technological superpower of their time. On the other side, the Israelites, nomadic herders with copper swords and sheep's wool instead of armor. The outcome should have been obvious. But the Bible tells us more than a story of war. It reveals a principle archaeologists now call the David effect, when the most unlikely challenger completely changes the outcome of a conflict. Let's look at the overlooked details. David doesn't grab random stones. He chooses 5 smooth stones from a stream. Why 5? Why smooth? In ancient Hebrew tradition, the number 5 symbolizes divine grace overcoming human strength. The smooth surface represents the perfection of simplicity striking down complexity. And the stream itself, water in biblical symbolism, always means time, the flow of history. David isn't just picking a weapon. He is taking hold of the law of history itself. Now look at our world today. Don't modern conflicts echo this ancient pattern? Tech giants versus startups. Empires versus guerrilla movements. Mainstream media versus independent bloggers. In each of these battles, the same law applies. The small and agile strike down the big and clumsy. But is that a coincidence or part of a larger design? Goliath of Gath, his height 6 cubits and a span. By modern measure, nearly 3 meters tall. But it's not just his size that matters. The Bible describes his armor with photographic precision, like a page from a military manual. A bronze coat weighing over 50 kilos. A shield so heavy it required its own bearer. A spear with an iron tip weighing almost 7 kilos pure steel in his hands. Here's the striking detail. Archaeology confirms the Philistines were the first in the region to master iron. They held the monopoly on cutting-edge technology of their time. Goliath wasn't just a warrior. He was a walking symbol of technological supremacy. For 40 days he taunted the Israelites. Choose a man to fight me. 40 days in a row. Why 40? In biblical symbolism, 40 is the number of trial, purification, preparation for transformation. But Goliath didn't know those 40 days weren't his triumph, they were his curse. Each insult brought him closer to downfall. Doesn't this echo our own world? Today's technocratic elites armed with artificial intelligence, quantum computers, biotechnology, flaunting their superiority as Goliath once flaunted his armor. But power breeds weakness. The more perfect the system, the more points of failure it hides. The heavier the armor, the less freedom to move. History repeats this lesson. Tech giants brought down by simple shifts. Nokia losing to Apple, Blockbuster falling to Netflix. Traditional media overtaken by social platforms. The principle remains. Giants always share the same fatal flaw. They cannot adapt fast enough. But who was David? The youngest son of Jesse, from Bethlehem, a shepherd of sheep. In a family of 8 sons, he was the last in line. In the hierarchy of that time, he had no claim to power, no expectation of recognition. When the prophet Samuel came to Jesse's house seeking Israel's future king, Jesse didn't even consider calling David. He showed Samuel his 7 older sons, strong, grown men. But the Lord said, "Do not look at his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." Man looks at the outward form, but the Lord looks at the heart. And when David was finally brought in a boy smelling of sheep and fields, the oil of anointing flowed over his head. In that moment, the shepherd became a king, not formally, but spiritually. What did this anointing mean? In ancient Near Eastern tradition, oil wasn't just ritual. It symbolized the transfer of power from the divine to the earthly. David became a vessel of higher will. Now let's examine his character. A shepherd knows how to lead without force. Sheep cannot be driven anywhere, they can only be guided. David knew each one by name. He risked his life to rescue even a single lamb. When a lion or a bear attacked, he didn't flee, he fought. This is not leadership by fear. It is leadership by love, not authority by command, but authority by example. Doesn't this sound like a new type of leadership emerging in the 21st century? Leaders who don't rule from towers of glass, but work side by side with their teams. Musk on the Tesla factory floor. Zuckerberg coding in a garage. Startup founders sleeping in their offices with their engineers. They lack formal crowns, yet they have something greater authenticity. People follow them not because they must, but because they believe. The shepherd becomes king, not through inheritance, but through the inner readiness to sacrifice for others. 5 stones, a detail most readers overlook. Yet in Kabbalistic tradition, this number carries a hidden code. 5 is the number of humanity, 5 fingers, 5 senses, 5 elements in ancient philosophy. But in Jewish mysticism, 5 also means divine mercy, triumphing over strict justice. David doesn't pick stones from a cliff. He chooses them from a stream. Water has shaped them for centuries, making them perfectly balanced. Each stone perfection, born of time and flow. In physics, this is aerodynamics. A smooth stone flies straighter and farther than a rough one. But the Bible spoke of it 3,000 years before Newton. And here's the key question. Why does David take 5 stones if he needs only 1 for Goliath? Talmudic scholars suggest a bold answer. He was preparing to fight not just Goliath, but also his 4 giant brothers. That means David always knew the battle with Goliath wasn't a single duel. It was the start of a larger war. He was preparing for systemic conflict, not just a lone fight. And his sling? Not primitive at all. Research shows a sling stone can reach speeds of 200 kilometers per hour. The kinetic impact equals a .45 caliber bullet. But most of all precision. A skilled slinger could hit a coin-sized target from 50 meters away. Mathematics and mastery hidden in the swing of an arm. Doesn't this sound like breakthrough technologies today? The simplest designs hide the most complex power. Google a plain search bar hiding the world's most powerful algorithm. The iPhone a single touch screen replacing dozens of buttons. Bitcoin a simple idea of decentralized money shaking global banks. David's 5 stones symbolize this. The greatest weapons always look simple. Complexity lives inside, while simplicity shines outside. Morning in the valley of Elah, mist still clings to the ground when Goliath steps forward for the last time. Day 41. Is there no man to face me? He roars, and from the ranks of Israel steps a boy. No armor, no sword, no shield. Just a sling in his hand and stones in his pouch. When Goliath sees David, he cannot believe it. Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? To him, this is mockery, an insult to his honor. But David's reply changes everything. You come to me with sword and spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. In that instant, the battle is no longer physical. It becomes a spiritual clash. Not David versus Goliath, but the God of Israel against the gods of the Philistines. Goliath moves forward. The ground shakes beneath his steps. His armor rattles. His spear flashes in the sun. Apocalypse in miniature, the collision of 2 worlds. David runs toward him, not back forward. He draws a stone, places it in his sling, spins it above his head. 1 turn, 2, 3. The mathematics of precision, the physics of faith. The stone flies. It strikes dead center end to the giant's forehead, the only unprotected spot. In Kabbalah, the forehead symbolizes Keter, the crown, the highest consciousness. David strikes not the body, but the mind. Goliath falls, backward, like a tree cut down. The earth trembles at his fall. How many times have we seen this scene, replayed in modern history? The Berlin Wall, shattered by hammers. The Soviet Union, broken by the voices of ordinary people. Financial empires collapsing from a single investigation. The strongest systems always have a single point of failure. One well-aimed strike and the giant falls. The story of David and Goliath is not a single episode. It is a matrix repeated through the ages, a pattern that works regardless of era or culture. Look closer at history. Rome, the invincible empire, falls to barbarian tribes. Napoleon, the emperor of Europe, defeated by the Russian winter. The British Empire, ruler of the seas, losing colonies one by one. In each case, the same law applies. The great system wins until the smaller force finds the precise point of impact. This is no coincidence. It is the law of historical dynamics, encrypted by the biblical authors in the tale of the shepherd and the giant. In Jewish eschatology there is the concept of Gog and Magog, the final clash of good and evil before the Messianic age. Many scholars see this as a symbolic replay of the David and Goliath archetype on a planetary scale. A small Israel against a coalition of nations. Faith against technology. Spirit against matter. Now look at the modern world. Who plays Goliath today? Transnational corporations with budgets larger than entire nations. Tech giants controlling the planet's information flow. financial institutions capable of bankrupting states with a single decision. And who plays David? Independent bloggers breaking media narratives, hackers breaching the most secure systems, startups destroying billion-dollar industries. But the greatest battle is still ahead. It will not be between nations or corporations, but between two types of consciousness, technocratic and spiritual. On one side, artificial intelligence, transhumanism, digital control of humanity. A new Goliath armed not with bronze spears, but quantum algorithms. On the other side, human awakening, a return to timeless values, the recognition of the divine within us. And just as 3,000 years ago, victory will belong to the one who holds the right stone and aims it true. The story of David and Goliath is not just an ancient legend. It is a guidebook, instructions for those who stand face to face with the impossible. Each of us has our own Goliath. For some, it is fear. For others, a system that crushes. For others still, doubt in themselves. But the lesson of David is not about being fearless. The lesson is about finding the right weapon, not the one your enemy expects, but the one true to your nature. The shepherd never tries to become a warrior. He remains a shepherd, yet uses the shepherd's skill to defeat the warrior. We live in an age of new Goliaths. They wear not bronze armor, but digital algorithms. They wield not spears, but big data. They command not armies, but the minds of millions. Yet the principle remains. Every giant has a forehead. Every system has a point of failure. David's 5 stones still lie somewhere in the valley of Elah. Archaeologists have not found them. But maybe they were never physical. Maybe those stones lie within us. The first stone is faith, the belief that the impossible can be done. The second is simplicity, the understanding that the hardest problems may have simple answers. The third is precision, the ability to strike at the one true point. The fourth is courage, the will to run toward danger. And the fifth is the mystery each of us must solve for ourselves. Tacitus once wrote of a shepherd's code. Perhaps he knew what we have forgotten, that history is not chaos, but pattern, that the universe has justice, and sometimes it comes in the form of a boy with a sling. The only question is, when your Goliath steps onto the field, will you be ready to face him? Will you find your 5 stones? History is waiting for your answer.